Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Living Practice, the podcast where we explore the intersection of creativity, spirituality, and daily life. My name is Ricky Horvatic. I am your host. I'm a writer. I'm an artist. I explore different modes of creativity, and I am here to talk to you today about transitions. So my main goal became figuring out exactly what it was that was causing the block to occur, because I found myself avoiding the studio and avoiding my desk for other really low energy, low barrier practices that I had built into my everyday. And this is something that I've talked about before, where having access to really simple, easy, creative practices can actually help other creativity flow. If you are stuck in one area of creativity, then moving to a different area that feels very low stakes and maybe isn't your vocation or your purpose, but is something that you have fun doing, maybe it can invoke a sense of play for you. That is something that you can do to help unlock your creativity. I knew that I had to figure something out, because my chaos journal, which is my handmade notebook that's inside my traveler's notebook, where I literally I put down whatever, words, scribbles, paint, paper, washi tape, stickers, whatever it is that I feel like putting down, that's what I put down. I'm going to eventually have it become an art book, because I have handmade it myself from recycled materials, but I really wanted to return to this practice, and I was finding it hard to even do that. And so I knew something was off, because if I can't even get to the practice where it's just for me, then I know something isn't flowing correctly. And the way I approach creativity is, I believe that we are channeling, whether it's the collective unconscious or it's our higher selves, or it's, creative energy, or it's, in the form of a spirit. I feel like we're channeling something that is greater than ourselves, and we have to get into the current of the flow of that field and be able to have it move through us. And I was no longer able to do that. And it's something that I have been able to easily do. My art practice, making collages, making mixed media artwork, feeds my writing practice. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I have always struggled with the act of writing because of my inner critic, and because of procrastination and just a lot of self-doubt. So when I discovered creative journaling, which later became chaos journaling, I don't use the stickers as much. It's much more like messy art journaling. When I found that, and I really started diving in headfirst, that is when my personal writing journey started. I was journaling more. That's when I was able to keep up with morning pages when I was doing them. That is when I was able to really take off in all other areas of my creativity. Now, I will say that an even lower energy creative practice that I do when I feel like really, really stuck is crochet. So I did find myself crocheting a lot. Crocheting and listening to podcasts or audiobooks where I'm learning new information is one of the activities I did when my kids were really little. I was really hyper-focused on fiber art back then, because it's always something I wanted to learn. My grandma, who passed away when I was 11, had started to teach me, and we unfortunately were not able to ever finish those lessons. I think I only got done with the chaining part. I never moved on to row 1. She lived in Alabama. I was only there for 1 week out of the year, and then she got sick and she passed away. So I hyper-focused on crochet and knitting for a really long time. And so now, even though that's not my main form of creative expression, it is something that my muscle memory is really built up, And so I can return to it, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I can just make granny squares, which is what I'm doing right now. I can make granny squares. I know I can make something out of them eventually, and I don't have to overthink it. So I do think having an arsenal or a toolbox of different creative things that you can do will help you when you find yourself in seasons where you're busy and your mind can't get into that flow state, where you're not able to tap into the creative field. I feel like having those creative practices can help you really stop underestimating yourself, because I think the inner monologue that a lot of us deal with has a good way of tricking us into thinking that we can do things, and then when it doesn't turn out the way that we have envisioned it, then it almost turns on us. And that's been my experience. I don't know if that's been your experience. I would love if people wanted to share in the comments or send me an email, starmothpress@gmail.com. I would love to see how other people have dealt with the inner critic and the inner monologue that has, I know, been plaguing artists since the beginning of time, basically. Once we got past the recent full moon and I did a release ritual where I wrote things out and I burned the paper that I wrote all of what I wanted to let go of, and I was looking at my Substack and I was feeling guilty because I hadn't written in like a month. I just suddenly knew that the tarot diaries needed to be put away for a while. I don't know if it's something that I'll return to. I love the tarot, and this was even affecting my daily, personal tarot practice. I often go through seasons where I'm drawing cards every day, and then I'm not drawing cards. I'm actually working with an oracle deck right now. I only do it sometimes every day, sometimes not. It really depends on how busy my daily life is. All that being said, it became clear to me that the tarot diaries were not what I needed to be working on right now. I had a vision of taking the writing and the podcast episodes and the reflections and the art and turning it into a book. And so I'm going to save everything that I worked on up until this point, and if I feel called to return to it at another time, I will. But right now, I really want to get back to talking about paper and talking about art and creativity and spirituality and the ways that they all have impacted my life as a sober person, as a person struggling with mental health issues, as a person who is late diagnosed ADHD, and who is a stay-at-home mom and feels pretty disconnected from the world outside of, my very small nuclear family. This podcast was always meant to be about spirituality and creativity and daily life. And it is meant to interact with or play off of the essays that I share on Substack. So I hope that this shift or transition doesn't throw anybody for a loop. I hope that if something feels stuck for you in your creative practice, you try something else for a little bit and see how you feel. I also hope that you consider maybe something needs to be let go for right now. Everything has its appropriate season, and being able to recognize when a season is maybe over can be really powerful. And I'm excited to see where this new transition and this new space leads me. I feel very open and ready to bring things in now. And getting back to the podcast is one of those things. Podcasts are something I'm constantly listening to when I'm actually engaging with listening to any form of entertainment. And I wanted to get back to it because I feel like I have a lot to say, and trying to keep it too structured with the tarot diaries was not serving the purpose of this audio format. So if you guys could do me a favor, if you could favorite this podcast in your favorite podcast player, subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment, do whatever it is. It's available on my Substack, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. and probably some other podcast players as well. I hope that this episode was helpful for you. If you, again, have any questions about creativity or spirituality and you wanted to send them to me, my email is starmothpress@gmail.com. You can find me at starmothpress on Instagram and starmoth.substack.com. I hope that you guys have a creative week. I hope that you make something today. And I hope that you spend some time outside if the weather is nice where you are, because I'm sitting here watching the birds fly around the park and I feel really inspired from it. All right, y'all, go do something creative. Bye.